This week, we're talking about tips for new game masters and ways to make themselves better at it. One of the things I see asked over and over online is, I'm new at running tabletop RPGs. What tips do you guys have that would make me better at this? So here are some of the better pieces of advice that can be given to someone that is new at running these types of games. First of all, it's not you versus them. You're not their adversary. You're running the game, and your job is to make sure everyone has fun. And frankly, as long as everyone has fun, you've done a good job, pretty much no matter what you've done. It doesn't matter. But you are not their adversary. Sometimes you put adversaries in their way, someone for them to love, to hate, to fight, to be against. But you yourself are not their adversary. You are another friend at the table that is going along this adventure with them, going along this storyline with them. You just happen to know a little bit more than they do, as well as control the world around them. But it's not you versus them. If they all die and lose, you didn't win, because now the game's done, and you can't have fun playing that anymore because they're dead. Sometimes it happens. We'll get to that a little bit later. But if you're planning to do that, that's not the right way to do it. You're not versus them. Give the players a cookie. The game is there to challenge them, but sometimes it's good to give them that easy win once in a while. This is really odd place for advice, but advice from professional torturers say that to constantly imbue their victim with pain is often less effective than alternating pain and pleasure. So if you're constantly pressuring them, this is a dire situation. Monster after monster is coming in after them, and NPC villains are always plotting against them, and every single fight they do is a fight to the death, but they only have 1 or 2 hit points left, and they're barely crawling back to that tavern to heal. Every once in a while you gotta give them that easy win, because otherwise things start to get a little bit dragged down, and people get a little bit tired of that. Give them that easy win. Throw in 3 dozen orcs at them, but they only have 1 hit point each, so the players get that ultimate rush of being able to slaughter the evil orcs in front of them with such ease and grace that it almost makes them wonder what big thing's coming next. But at the same time, it makes them feel powerful. It makes them feel charged, which is really what you want. When it comes to planning something, sometimes less is more. The game works better when you let the players play out the story with the props you give them, instead of trying to shove them into a certain direction. It's called railroading. In certain circumstances, or even only in just parts of the campaign, railroading can be okay. Basically, you know what direction they need to go into, and due to the events around them, they pretty much have nowhere else to go. But for the most part, the players would rather know that they can make their own decisions, and sometimes they will. So you want to have more movable props. And when I say movable props, I mean, for example, you have an encounter with goblins that needs to be done. Your original plan for the encounter with the goblins was in the forest, but the players decided to take the mountain route instead. Well, that's fine. As long as the players didn't necessarily know that the goblin encounter was planned, you can move it to the mountains. The players will never know you moved it, and you still have the encounter that you planned all along. They don't even have to know that you moved. They can actually think that you planned for this, even though you really didn't. When it comes to giving players information, sometimes less is more. This is a bit of advice often given to writers. Too many writers that write not so great books, in the beginning, will have an info dump, it's called. Basically, it's a dump of information, here's all the information about the world, the universe, what's going on, and now you know everything, so why do you really want to read any further? You want to tease out that information. You want to start out, be like, here's some of the information, there's more things going on in the background, the world is alive, things are going on that you can't see. By slowly doling out this information to your players, the players feel that this world is alive. They feel that they're immersed in something that's going on that they don't know everything about. Which specific rules are used in your game, regardless of the system norm, is less important than the rules being consistent and clearly understood. This gives the players a guideline on what to expect, how to manage their characters. If you fail to be consistent, and the way things work in the campaign tend to be affected by your whims at that moment, the players may start to become frustrated, because it's no longer an organized game, so much as just them succumbing to your whims and fancies. However, also on that note, don't be afraid to make the occasional exception to keep the game balanced and fun. Although the majority of the time you want to let the dice fall where they may. After all, this is what allows an element of danger and luck to be in the game. However, sometimes there is a hiccup or mistake in the game, and for the life of you can't think of a creative way to get out of it. In this particular instance, it's okay to shift things slightly to help the game along. Using this tool once in a while is perfectly fine. It's one of the reasons a game master often plays behind a screen. However, if you find you are having to use this tool too often, then maybe you should take a look at why this is happening and try to fix your root issue. Try to have some spare tools at hand. Names, places, NPC stat blocks, monster stat blocks, even mini side adventures, things that may not directly relate to this main story that you're trying to run. You'll be surprised how often you may need one of these in a moment's notice. Take notes in an almost journal-like fashion. When giving the players information or stating something new in the game, it's very easy to say, I'll remember that, that's not a problem. A memory like a something or other. But a day, a week, even a month down the road, there's a good chance you may have forgotten that little detail. So now when the players randomly decide to go visit that village alchemist again and want to know what his name was, you've got a handy dandy note, probably dated. And finally, fake it till you make it. You're not going to feel like you know what you're doing at first, probably. After all, you have a group of people all looking you to run things, and that's fine. I've been doing this since the mid-90s, and I still get a little bit like that myself sometimes. So pretending you know what's going on is sometimes more important than actually knowing. Also, you can just stall a little bit, give them a little bit of information for them to mull over, let them role play, even give them a small encounter while you are just hurriedly thinking in your mind, what do I do next? Where do I go from here? And I mentioned, if you need to, you can always call a game that hour early just to say, okay, the next part's bigger, I need to do a bit of planning for it, let's wrap it up here, we'll pick it up next week. So, hopefully some of these tips have been useful to you. These are some of the more common tips I was able to find across my adventures over the internet, and tips that I myself have given players in the past. Really hope this helps you out, and have yourself a good one, eh?